Hi and welcome to my third video in the series about structures and bonding, and today we're going to be looking at ionic bonding. Okay, so we've previously gone through and looked at the structure of different types of atoms, but what we're going to do today is to understand why certain atoms join together. And so you've all probably heard of the chemical called sodium chloride, which is normal table salt, and today we're going to look at why it is that the sodium and the chlorine join together. So an ionic compound is one that's produced from a metal and a non-metal. Now a metal is always found on the left-hand side of the periodic table and a non-metal is found on the right. You might be able to see on a periodic table it's got this squiggly line on the right-hand side, and that divides up the metals from the non-metals. So what we need to establish is what an ion is. So an ion is produced when an atom either loses or gains electrons. So I'm going to explain this with the example of sodium chloride, and specifically sodium at the start here. So sodium, Na, if you look at that in your periodic table, it's on the left-hand side and it's in group 1, and so you should realise that that has one electron in its outer shell. And so in order for the sodium atom to become an ion, what it needs to do is it needs to lose this single electron on its outer shell, and that's what all atoms are gaining to do, or they're trying to do. They're trying to reach a state at which they've got a full outer shell. Now a sodium atom could either gather more electrons to it, 7, or it could lose 1, and the quickest way for it to do that is to lose 1. And so when it does that, it loses this electron, it becomes an ion. It now has a charge. And the charge it now has is a single positive, and the reason for that, if you look back at the previous videos where I've discussed proton number and mass number, you'll know that sodium, it has a proton number of 11. So that means it has 11 protons, so 11 positive charges. And now, because it's become an ion, what's happened is it's lost a single electron. And so now instead of having 11 electrons, it now has 10. So it has 11 positive charges and 10 negative ones, and hence why it has the charge single positive. Now chlorine is different. Chlorine's on the right hand side and it's a non-metal. It has 7 electrons in its outer shell. That tells you that it's in group 7. Now in order for chlorine to have a full outer shell, which it's trying to get to, it can either gain 1 electron to get to 8 or lose 7. So the quickest method is to gain 1. And so this shows our chlorine atom with 287. So chlorine, that has an atomic number of 17. And so you can see the 17 crosses here. In order for it to become an ion, what it must do is it must gain an electron. And so they're using the example of gaining it from sodium. It then reaches a full outer shell, and now it has 288. And now it has 18 electrons. So the reason why chlorine has a negative charge is the fact that it's got 17 protons and now it's got 18 electrons, and hence Cl-. So this diagram here takes us through the entire process. So these both represent a sodium atom and a chlorine atom. Now what's going to happen is the electron from the sodium is going to exchange with the electron from the chlorine, and now we have a sodium ion which has a positive charge, and we have a chlorine ion which has a negative charge. And what you'll find is because one has a positive and the other has a negative, then they will be attracted to one another and join up, and hence you have sodium chloride, NaCl. Now there's a simpler way of putting this. So instead of drawing all of the electron shells, sometimes you might be asked in an exam question, or it might show you an example of where they only draw the outer shell, and this is what this is illustrating. So sodium group 1, single electron in its outer shell. Chlorine group 7, 7 electrons in its outer shell. This is showing the sodium losing the electron and the chlorine gaining it, and hence the positive charge for the sodium and the negative for the chlorine. So in summary, ionic bonding is where ions of opposite charges join. So in the case of sodium and chlorine, sodium has a positive charge, chlorine has a negative, and hence why they join together. Ions are formed when electrons are lost or gained. In the case of sodium, it produces an ion when it loses its electron. Chlorine forms an ion when it gains an electron. All ions formed from group 1 elements have a positive charge, and all ions formed from group 7 have a negative charge.